Alright guys, in this video we're going to be talking about what hammer should you buy and how to dress your hammer. Now when you first start blacksmithing, you may feel overwhelmed with all these different hammers and everyone's telling you should get this hammer, you should get this hammer. Well, the truth is, when you're first starting out, and really I know blacksmiths that only use one hammer, and they tell me, I live near a place called the Blacksmith Depot, and I talk to them and they say, you only need one hammer for everything you do. This is the hammer I use, and it's the cross-peen hammer. I started out with a 2-pound hammer. Now, as you do build up your strength, you can move to heavier hammers, but 2 pounds is a good place to start. It's got the flat face of the hammer that you can use for all your normal work. You have the peen of the hammer you can use for drawing out metal, for getting into those tight spaces, and it's an all-around good hammer that you can use for pretty much anything. Now you see a lot of other blacksmiths, like Alex Steele primarily uses a rounding hammer. I'm not exactly sure where that is. A lot of reason why blacksmiths use rounding hammers is because they come from a farrier background, and that's what they're used to, so that's what they use. But rounding hammers can actually be less effective, because when you're really trying to move metal, and if you're drawing something out and you're using the round face of that hammer, you're actually putting more work on yourself, because when you're drawing something out, you want to be doing what's called off-face blows, and that's where you have your hammer angled a little bit, or you're using the peen of the hammer, and that's basically pushing the steel in the direction of your blows, instead of having a flat face blow where your steel goes out in 360 degrees, which what will happen when you're using a rounding hammer. Now, rounding hammer does have a flat side, so you could use that side using off-face blows, but because the cross-peen hammer does have that peen on it, it does make it a lot more versatile when you're starting out. Now let's take a look at a dressed hammer versus a not dressed hammer. As you can see, this hammer is dressed. You can see that the sides are curved. There's no sharp edges. It's almost rounded, but we still have that flat surface. It's not round, but it is rounder than what we started with. The reason why this is necessary is because if you have an undressed hammer, the point of contact is much smaller because you're hitting at a flat space, and the likelihood that you're going to hit the perfectly flat space every single time is very slim. There's a very small contact point. Whereas if you round those edges, and if you hit the piece at a little bit of a wrong angle, there's a lot more forgiveness, and the hammer's not going to bounce all around on you. If we take a look at the handle, you can see it's square versus the round hammer, the round handle on the other hammer. The reason for this is if you look at the shape of your hand, it's actually not round, it's square. And if you have a round hammer, you're exerting a lot more force to hold on to that hammer. Whereas if your hammer's square, it can easily just be resting in your hand. Having a round hammer handle can actually lead to carpal tunnel because you're gripping onto it so hard. So it's very important that we remove that roundness. I'll take the hammer out of the vise a couple times to check how it fits in my hand. If you notice in your hand, there are some angles. It's not a perfect square, and we want those angles in the hammer. Now I'm going in and taking those angles off the hammer that I talked about before, and I'm also rounding that surface a little bit. So I put this diagram here so you guys can see what we did to the hammer face. I actually forgot to put dressing the peen in this video, but you can see from the diagram we're basically doing the same thing we did to the face. We're taking off those angles, making it rounder, and now we have a dressed hammer. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.